It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Wednesday, Gary, what's happening?
Love how you had the accent of my name. Gary,
Gary,
get in here.
like the angry sergeant on every cop show.
Well,
McNamara.
When you said Gary like that, almost irritated me as much as the lawyer arguing for the state, the Solicitor General, yesterday in the January 6th SCOTUS hearings.
Yeah.
Her voice was like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Stop it, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might be the best position. Having her there might be the best position that they can have because she got destroyed in all the legal arguments, but they might just say, look, we just got to, her voice is so irritating. Can we just get out of here and just.
Nobody paid attention to what she said.
Right. So we just want to get out of here.
Win, so.
Hey, let's start the show with a loop, okay?
All right.
I like this loop here. Here we go. This is Mayorkas.
I've never minimized the challenge that the southern border presents. It is my testimony that the border is secure. I have never minimized the challenge that the southern border presents. It is my testimony that the border is secure. I have never minimized the challenge that the southern border presents. It is my testimony that the border is secure.
Now, I will say that the RNC, or the GOP put that together, not the RNC.
It has a cadence. It deserves a backbeat. I was on the third replay. I thought, yeah, okay, I could find that beat as a drummer. Definitely, that had a cadence. We got to make that happen.
Well, we'll get to the whole impeachment thing. You know, the other thing that's interesting is, and this is why it's so tough to figure out what's going to happen in this election.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so tough. You know, I was going through the New York Times, the New York Times poll from the other day that they're saying Biden's catching up. And then you see, okay, what does Kennedy have? Two percentages?
Yeah.
2 percentage points?
Yeah.
That's it? Now, that in itself makes it a huge outlier.
Mm-hmm.
But I just found that, I just found that fascinating. You know, look, because they've made so much of it. Like, the one poll shows that Biden is catching up. And I'm like, stop it. You can't. You cannot do it this early and make these definitive opinions. You can, as we've always said about polls, see where the momentum is.
Well, and we did that. We thought, okay, when the latest surge with Trump started, it was right about the beginning or maybe after the first week of February. And that was collectively in all the polls, you started to see movement. And that's what we always look at. We look at the movement in any given pollster, to compare, one poll to the next based on the same methodology. But then also, is there also movement in with the other pollsters? And there was. And that's going to be the case. I mean, latching on to the one poll like the media did over the last 24, 36 hours, it's just, it shows you that I think it's, it's part of this whole desperation thing. They don't know what to do with him. They know every time they put him out there that it's a risk. And so what do? You promote anything you can that's in the positive. And I guess that's the only thing they have. And it's, by the way, as you mentioned, an outlier. I wouldn't put too much into the one poll just yet.
Yeah, I could see by the time you get to the election that where Kennedy was polling, he was up like 17, 18 points, right, at one point.
Yeah.
I can see as we get closer to the election, I'm talking October, that you see that number eaten into severely.
Yeah.
I still would expect, though, that Kennedy would get close to 10%. Be very surprised if he didn't. You know, I can see him getting 7, 8, 9%.
Yeah, I think it's I think there's a good chance that he has the potential to get within that range,
right.
Which, by the way, would be pretty massive.
Oh, it would be, yeah. Yeah, we never believed the polling that early on. He's got 20%. He's got a chance. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say, well, him picking his vice presidential nominee, who is so far left, that might have hurt him with Republicans. I don't believe he really had. You look at the vast majority of polls, he wasn't eating into Trump. He was eating into Biden.
Yeah, I think any of the Republicans who have latched on to RFK Jr. are the ones. They're not never Trumpers. They're not this time Trumpers. And it's, because I think they look at it and say, look, not again, Trumpers. I think it's kind of a mix of those individuals and never, I don't know, maybe a few never Trumpers. I think, they've gone full on liberal anyway. So some of them may be voting for Biden. Yeah, I think it's more of that, hey, none of the above crowd. And maybe I would have voted for Trump at another point, but not this time. And I think that's what we're seeing from anybody who may have voted a Republican in the past.
Two polls that just caught my interest yesterday. And again, we always say you can't look at one poll, but sometimes one poll can tell you something. And this was the one out of Massachusetts, that an increasing number of Massachusetts residents have indicated that migrants and immigration is the most important issue for state leaders to address. The Commonwealth GBH News poll conducted between March 21st and 29th by Massachusetts Inc. polling group surveyed Massachusetts residents about which issues they felt were most pressing for the state. It looks like this is one we only got to pick one.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't, so it looks like it adds up to 100. Of all the issues mentioned in the poll, 21% of the people said migrants and immigration was the top issue state government was facing, while 15% of respondents, this is in second place, said they felt housing was the most important issue that state leaders should address. 12% of those surveyed said they felt taxes, government spending, and welfare was the most important issue for state governments to address, while 12% said the state government should focus on inflation and cost of living. 8% expressed that the government should address issues facing politics such as corruption, transparency, and incompetence, while another 8% said issues plaguing the economy such as jobs, poverty, and inequality were the most urgent. Altogether, 67% of those polled considered migrants and immigration a problem. 28% called it a crisis. 39% described it as a major problem. Okay, now this is what makes this unique is you're not talking about a swing state.
Right.
You're talking about the state of Massachusetts, one of the most liberal states in the nation. And you look at all of those issues there. What are the concerns, as we have stated before? And I had a great conversation with a friend of mine yesterday who I don't talk a lot about politics with. And, we were, just talking about where the public is, right now. She was asking me where do you believe the public is? And it's right there.
Yeah.
You've got it right there that all those issues have to do with, and as I was telling her, I said the worst enemy of what we've always stated on the radio, the worst enemy of the Democrats right now is not Republicans.
Right.
It's reality.
Right. Yeah, it is.
Well, you look at all those there, everything there, and what is it? When you look at it, what are the people of Massachusetts, what are their major concerns? We'll go through it again. 21% migrants, immigration, 15% housing, 12% surveyed said taxes, government spending, and welfare. And I'm assuming they're not saying we want more taxes and more government spending and more welfare.
Right.
I doubt.
Right.
I mean, again, they're a liberal state. They might.
It is Massachusetts, but we doubt that. Yeah.
And then you had 12% focus on inflation and cost of living. 8% government should address issues facing politics such as corruption, transparency, and incompetence. 8%. Other issues plaguing the economy, such as jobs, poverty, and inequality, were the most urgent. Well, you look at that there, and everything is the Democrats now hitting reality, and that's their worst enemy because people are figuring out none of this works, and it makes their life harder, even in Massachusetts.
Right.
That's why I think you can look at this poll, and what you get out of it is, if it was a swing state, you might go, okay, it's, whatever. If it was a Republican state, but understand how liberal Massachusetts is.
Right.
And their concerns are exactly the concerns of conservatives in this country.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so important. And the other one I saw yesterday that I went, whoa, and this was that Associated Press. Get me a beer, Gary. Jeez. Learn to talk, you idiot. All right. Take two.
All right.
The other poll that I found fascinating, the Associated Press NORC poll, NORC as they call it, only 1 in 3 adults think Trump acted illegally in the hush money case. So what you're saying is only the most liberal Democrats, that's what I get out of that,
right,
believe it, that you have a significant portion of Democrats, and then you've got a ton of independents that believe that this is delusional prosecution.
And I think you could even wear down that portion that believes that he is guilty.
If you break it down and they're willing to listen to the legal arguments.
Exactly.
Yes.
If you were to break that, this is one thing when we get to the qualification of pollsters, of how much they know about the law. Well, first of all right, name the 3 branches of government. We'll start there. And then, in this case, how does the law apply? For those who believe, for that 1 out of every 3. Tell us where he broke the law. Show us the law that he broke. Not the charges.
Right. Break it down.
Yep. And that's, those are the things that they just latch on to something because it's been the rallying cry. And you can get pretty radical on that alone, on that element alone. The repeat, the chant, the repeating, the talking points, whatever it is, you can get pretty radical on that, including what we call lawfare. This kind of, action against Trump, again, yesterday, the media coverage. This whole thing should have been thrown out. It should have been, you're making up law here. Don't waste the court's time.
I did see another argument come out on social media yesterday. I just sort of ignored it, and it just popped into my head now, so I can't even tell you who wrote it, but I saw this more in agreement from the left that the people that are defending Trump and going after Bragg, because as we've said before, this has nothing to do. I guess if you look at the case, you're defending Trump's legal points on it. But to me, all these cases have nothing to do with Trump. How I analyze them has nothing to do with Trump.
The individual, right, not at all.
It could be any individual, and my opinion would be...
It has to do with the law.
Yeah, your opinion would be exactly the same.
Right.
And so when I look at that poll, I say 2 things. Americans are paying attention now, or there's a great sympathy. Americans are sort of paying attention, and just because of the number of court cases and Democrats going after Trump, and then when you see what happened in Colorado and that Supreme Court thing, and then the Supreme Court yesterday, tearing apart the arguments of the state for the obstruction of an official proceeding
right.
that has gotten some of those protesters and trespassers, gotten them long jail sentences. You can tell the Supreme Court isn't buying it at all.
Right.
And I think because there's been so much of this, and that when you look at the Biden situation where they're ignoring it, I do think that overall there is a general perception, definitely from Republicans, definitely with independents, and I think now even a growing number of Democrats, and this is where you and I talk about the Jonathan Turley, the Dershowitzes, the Barry Weisses, the Michael Schellenbergers, the Matt Taibbis, who are all Democrats that have completely rejected where the Democratic Party is going. That may be, where the country is going right now, because there's just been so much. It's like, look, I hate Trump, but my God, they make it sound like he's committed every crime in the world when Biden does the same thing and nothing happens to him.
Right.
He just skates on everything.
Right. And the effect of, look, I don't want Trump to be the president, but if he's to become the president, then what if their Justice Department starts doing the same thing?
Yep, that's the other one.
And that's what you see from, whether it's Colorado, taking him off the ballot or whatever, you see liberals going, wait a minute, you can't do this. You can't do this. And if you're going to do this, if you're going to start this, it's going to be that from now on. And we're far beyond scorched earth if that happens. And I don't think there's any way to return that. I mean, we have to get back to being a nation of law and order, securing our border, a thriving economy. And there's really no way around that. The people come and go. The ideas remain.
We've got a great show ahead. There's so much to talk about. It really is. Every day is like,
I know.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring. If you're experiencing sluggish cranking, start your spring maintenance routine by having your electrical system tested by a professional technician. Your batteries, alternator, and starter have been working overtime to keep up with cold starts and thick oil during winter. Continuing to crank a vehicle with low voltage will lead to more damage and downtime later on. Big rigs are big investments. Take care of yours now to help avoid downtime later and keep rolling through to next winter.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. This was an interesting story. L.A. mayor pleads for the wealthy to help buy housing for the homeless. Just wonder how that's going to go.
Right.
We will not hide people, but this is what we will do is house people. And so she has asked for the wealthy to buy housing for the homeless because the government can't do it anymore. So
well,
they want that.
They spent $24 billion, so they're out of money, and they didn't account for it, of course.
Oh man, that story, yeah.
And now, let's just let's ask the rich to help them. The fact of the matter is that I don't know of anybody that has one solid answer when it comes to the homeless, but there should be accountability, especially when you're spending $24 billion. Because if you're going to spend the people's money, then make it work and follow it along the way to make sure it's working.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's my radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wait a minute. I think that Biden came out with a statement yesterday on Caitlin Clark, and you saw that she was drafted, first in the WNBA. Mm-hmm. Here it is. Biden calls for female athletes to get paid what they deserve, as it was announced what her rookie contract would be.
Yeah, it was 300 and what for the 3 years?
$338,000 for a 4-year deal, but it's an option year for the 4th year. She will earn $76,535 in 2024.
Okay.
If the team picks up her option in 2027, which I'm guessing they might.
They might.
$97,000.
All right.
So it's like females need to be paid exactly what males are paid. If you're doing the same work, you get paid the same. I think we should do the same for Hollywood, too.
Yeah.
Everyone should make the exact same. I went to the UFL because if we're talking about that everybody should get paid the same for doing the same work. Well, I saw the UFL have been going through their salaries, which is the new football league, the Rock, and he owns part of it or whatever.
Right.
And they actually had some fans in the stands over the weekend. It's funny because I turned it on. My father's like, "What's this?" "Oh, it's a UFL." "What's that?" It's a minor league of football, and the only reason I turned it on, it's like because the play wasn't. You don't see a lot of great, long passes,
right?
And that's because you only have in the entire world probably 10 great quarterbacks.
Yeah,
even in the NFL, you see, and so you don't see a lot of long passes.
Right.
That are happening, so it's not the same kind of game. I've often stated that when you get to minor league football, because you don't have the great quarterbacks at all, that it's boring to watch. But there were some fans in the stands. I mean, in the game that I think it was Birmingham, but the Birmingham game, but in Alabama. But they've always been pretty good in pulling in some people to the games. Now I don't know how much tickets are, but they earn an average of like anywhere between $90,000 to $137,000 is what the minimum salary would be there. And in a rookie league like the WNBA, that's what you get. Look, in the WNBA, in sports in general, everything is decided by the audience that you pull in. NFL players make a ton of money because they pull in great numbers.
Yeah. I think they should all unionize, including the NFL. $20 an hour. It'll be one of those scenarios, kind of like the broadcast union, where they come in and go, "We're going to get you what you deserve," and then they get you like half of what you're making already.
I think that everybody in Hollywood should make the exact same amount of money.
Yes,
because if you're going to sit there and say the WNBA doesn't pay as much as the NBA, well, then you can say, well, men's football isn't equal and all men should be paid the same. Now, if you're talking about the question I would have for Biden, if he says women need to be paid as much as men, what's the next question? Define a woman. How can anybody on the left talk that women's salaries should be the same as men when nobody in the Democratic Party can tell you what a woman is?
Now, we'll take that to the next step, right? Let's say they were able to get it done, right? And equal pay across the board in a world where you can just say you're a woman and you're not a great player in the NBA, but you might be able to make the team in the WNBA. So you show up. Why? Well, because they're making a lot more money now. All you have to do is say you're a woman. Grow your hair out. You don't even have to grow your hair out. Grow a full beard. Nobody cares. On the left, nobody cares. How dare you judge? So there would be a greater incentive for men who can't play with the big boys to go play in the WNBA. I love the interview with Liam Neeson several years ago. Should women make equal pay in Hollywood? Yes. Are you willing to give up part of your salary to make it happen? No. I mean, he couldn't get that out fast enough. No.
Biden called for women to be paid what they deserve. Right. Tuesday as a debate raged online. Yeah. Raged online.
Was it raging?
It was raging online.
I didn't feel the rage. Raging online. I didn't feel that rage.
Now Caitlin's really not raging. Why? Because it's the endorsements where she's going to make her money and she knows it.
Right.
Now, she may help in future contracts for the WNBA to increase salaries.
Right.
But it doesn't happen up front.
Right.
You've got to, in any business, you've got to perform with an audience. And the WNBA, with the games that they show, if there would be a huge, and who knows, will there only be a huge increase for the Indiana team that Caitlin Clark is playing? Is that where it's going to be? Is it limited? Is it women's basketball that is drawing people in, or is it Caitlin Clark?
Right.
And that's a legitimate question that any advertiser is going to ask, because if she can produce, let's say she produced, this is all hypothetical, and I don't think you're going to see these kind of numbers, but if she produced 10 million people watching every single WNBA game, which, by the way, I believe is more than the NBA, but if she did, well, then you don't need any legislation. The marketplace will decide that.
Well, advertisers will jump. This is how it works.
Cost per point.
The advertisers would jump in saying, we got something here, and it's exploding, and we need to put our product in front of people's eyes. Right. That's the way it works.
Advertisers don't care. They don't care whether you're a female or a male.
Right.
All they care is, can I advertise with you, and will that advertising pay off?
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. It's that simple.
Yep.
And the WNBA does not have the revenue that the NBA has, just like the UFL. The reason the UFL can't pay as much, but they're doing the same work, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're putting their bodies out there. They could be injured.
Mm-hmm.
And they're out there every day doing the exact same thing that NFL players are. Well, maybe not the exact same thing, but a lot of the actual job itself, the job description itself is exactly the same, and they're not making nearly what the NFL makes. Why? Because it's all revenue driven.
Right.
Just like Hollywood is revenue driven.
Yep.
They don't pay $20 million to somebody for a film because, well, we just like you. It's because they know you can pull in people to watch.
Right.
That's it. End of story.
Yep.
And so Biden fired. Women in sports continue to push new boundaries and inspire us all. Biden wrote on X, but right now we're seeing that even if you're the best, women are not paid their fair share.
Uh-huh. Yeah, their fair share.
Yeah. What's the fair share?
Right. Let's get the government in on setting salaries in professional sports. Let's do that.
And let's also look at it this way. When you look at what the WNBA promotes, they are a far-left organization. Why isn't a far-left organization paying the players what they're worth?
Right.
I guarantee the majority of players in the WNBA are not Republican.
I'm guessing not. I'm guessing they are not. Yeah. And it is, look, everybody knows how it works. Everybody knows how this whole thing works, and this idea, they get paid for the same work. Actually, you get paid, in that case, for the same results. If the WNBA was getting the same results in terms of viewers and audience then you would see advertisers change. And that's how it works. You produce those results as a league. And for whatever reason, it's not happening right now. And it might one day, and maybe not.
Well, everything is down. I saw the golf is down.
Mm-hmm.
The Masters had, really low ratings.
Right.
Like 9 million watched the final round. And it was a great tournament. People are doing other things also.
Yeah.
You and I have asked the question, when our professional sports contracts, for example, in the National Hockey League that does not have the television ratings, and even the NBA that doesn't have nearly the television ratings. Now, you're able to pay those players more because you have fewer players.
Right.
You don't have a roster you take roughly over 60 if you take the practice squad that they're also paid on it. You don't have the infrastructure for a football team. What you need for that is way over what you have for an NBA team.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those players are able to make, pretty good salaries. But the fact is, eventually, the NFL is continue to grow. But, we saw it happen in NASCAR. And, where are we going in sports in general in this country? What is the interest in it? How jaded are people getting? You look at the Buffalo situation with their new stadium, and that made national news, the personal seat license. You've got professional sports that, this. I can hear Biden doing this. Well, she needs to get her fair share, but ticket prices need to be low, and these owners need to lose money. Just like the players aren't going to make any money, then the owners shouldn't make any money, and therefore we need regulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
on it, and it's just like, oh, shut up.
Well, no, it's at every turn. They really do want to do that. That's, we want to limit the cost of the individual going to the game. We want to increase the pay. They believe the American people are stupid and don't know how this whole thing works, and of course we do.
But when you price the average person out of getting a ticket to a sporting event, when they can never go because they just can't afford it, the tickets are way too expensive. The concessions are way too expensive. What do you do at that point? Because part of me becoming a sports fan was actually going to the games when I was a kid.
Right.
I've wondered, why have I lost my interest in sports? I started thinking about that. We know what happened with the Kaepernick thing and all that, but, they've basically gone past that and realized, okay, we shouldn't have, even the NBA, we shouldn't have gone down that road. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, I look at ticket prices, and even though I'm in a position to afford it, I look at what they cost and say, it's not worth it. Right. So I don't go to sporting events anymore. I might go to a minor league baseball game, or even one, because you can still get, baseball tickets for reasonable prices. Mm-hmm. It may not be the best seats, but you can still get them at more reasonable prices. They have a lot more games. But if you don't go to games as a kid anymore because you can't afford to go, how much will you be drawn into sports like the previous generation?
Yeah, I think there is, we're getting to a point of reaching that threshold. I don't know, how close we are, but at some point you're going to reach that threshold. Because with the cost of everything just skyrocketing, it becomes an elitist thing. So expensive where you've got to be, making a pretty good paycheck to go on a regular basis. And
you do.
Yeah. And I just don't think that can last forever.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. As for Caitlin Clark, you see her as an individual, based on the numbers that you have seen for the games that she has played in, the tremendous amount of audience. She is an individual. That's why she's getting all these endorsements, is because they know that she can work. As for the WNBA, their contract with their players is based on what has been.
Right.
And if she can bring it in, and it's, you look at it, if it becomes something like, what Larry Bird and Magic Johnson did to the NBA to bring them up in the 80s, then you will see a salary increase if it's more than just Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, right.
If it's not, it's going to be tougher to do.
Yep.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing?
Man, I can't believe it's... What day is it?
17th of April.
Yeah. No, it's going for a weekday. Wednesday. I can't believe it's Wednesday already. Wow. Where did this week go?
Well, it's all getting interesting.
Yeah, what's weird is the death of O.J. and the beginning of the trial for Trump kind of overlapped the stories. The death of O.J. kind of lingering there while they, they really, with the first day of it, Monday, it just was reminiscent of the slow speed chase. Him going to the courtroom, leaving Trump Tower, going to the courthouse. It was like the coverage of it. I'm like, they really want this to be something that it's not.
You had said something in our pre-show meeting that the clickbaits are more massive than ever before.
It really is,
and they're a real turnoff.
There are a number of things that I think both local and national news is doing, and I think any organization with an app, especially news organizations, they're doing it a lot, and especially on stories. So it is, this happened, and here's what we know, but they don't know. They won't give you basically the gist of the story. It doesn't give you a complete headline. And the idea is that you got to go there to find out. But then they also take certain things like, the Wall Street Journal had a story, and we talked about it the other day on the show, from ERCOT and the Electricity Reliance Council of Texas.
Right.
And they put out a warning about, that because of some routine maintenance issues at some of these power plants, they were trying to decide whether or not they could put that off or whether or not they needed to do that annual maintenance. And if that were going to be the case, demand might surge and there could be a problem. And, of course, the editorial board there at the Wall Street Journal tore that down into the ridiculous situation that we're in Texas. And they're both locally and nationally, those types of headlines, ERCOT issues warnings. Okay, here we go again. I did wonder, I was wondering yesterday, I thought, okay, ERCOT as an organization, you go back to the free solar thing, a few years ago, and is ERCOT now set up to be the boy who cried wolf? They're just going to issue a warning on any little blip that they see. Our grid is not set up the way it should be set up. Our energy flow in Texas isn't set up the way it should be set up, and we've talked about that to no end. You can go back and listen to previous podcasts from this week and get caught up on that, and we've talked about it numerous times. But the stories surrounding that, and then things like, the weather is always a big deal, no matter where you are. But in Tornado Alley, it's always this time of year. It's paramount. If there's a storm system coming through, you want to know what's going on. So there's just been the clickbaiting is just getting to a point of, here's our next chance for severe weather. Well, it's like 4 or 5 days away.
I know.
And I expect that from meteorologists, but it's really more of a marketing thing when it gets to the point of clickbaiting. And not every organization is doing it, but it's happening a lot with the news organizations. And it's just getting to the point where I'm kind of turned off by it. And it's like, you know what? Again, boy who cried wolf. And I think Monday was a great example of that, Monday morning, with the whole start of the Trump trial in New York. You're feeding an audience, you're presenting to an audience that really doesn't know what's going on here. These 34 counts that Bragg has brought against Trump in New York, and everyone's calling it hush money. It's even Fox News is calling it hush money. Well, that's the tabloid part of it. Let's talk about what a non-disclosure agreement actually is and how many are signed, and especially in business, all the time. There are things that go on all the time, and you could extrapolate that out if Bragg wanted to. With this standard, you could put anybody in jail based on a non-disclosure agreement. And it's just, that's, and the media takes it as if it's something legitimate. Like these charges are legitimate. We got to go through them. And Bragg knows this. They all know this. Letitia James knows this. That's the only reason they brought this. They know you got to go through the process. We're going to slow walk this thing. And, on appeal, Trump is likely to win across the board. We agree with Jonathan Turley. He mentioned it the other day that, and we've said it, in fact, early on, that if there's any case against Trump right now that has any teeth at all, it's the documents case, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, but the problem is there. You can look at what Biden, I think reasonable people can look at what Biden, and I'm included in that, can look at what Biden did and say, actually what Biden did was a lot worse over a longer period of time. So what you get to there is...
with no authority.
Yeah, so what you get to there is, all right, there's executive deference from the Department of Justice, and there has been consistently for everybody except Trump, and that's where you get to the two-tiered system of justice where, well, okay, we don't go after anybody who does this, but if Trump does it, then we go after him.
Exactly.
And that's the problem that you have with that. I do want to go to Jonathan Turley, though, because more on it in just a second, but you brought something up when you talk about the TV coverage. It's almost as if the mainstream media is like cheerleading. They don't wish to explain to you, what's going on here.
Right.
They throw out things like the 34 felonies and unprecedented. They actually don't get to the minutia of the case as to, well, are these charges legit?
Right.
And there is an assumption from the mainstream media that Bragg, that everybody knows is not above board, that Bragg is above board in doing this. The judge is above board. The only one that you should be suspicious of is Trump. Well, the public doesn't buy that based on the Associated Press survey that shows 1 in 3 don't believe Trump did anything wrong.
Right.
Because it's easy to explain, as we did yesterday. Once you explain it, and we said this on yesterday's show, once you explain it, you see no debate from the left on the actual charges.
Right.
It's just the rhetoric surrounding it. It's Trump, 34 felonies. He's going to get away with don't let him get away with it. Don't let everybody else would be prosecuted. Well, that's a lie. Nobody has been prosecuted for anything like this.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
And look, let's just go to Jonathan Turley and some of his comments here in the last 36 hours. He was on Fox News and had this to say about the case.
Everything about this case is, in my view, legally absurd. This case is basically a state misdemeanor that had run out on the statute of limitations. And Bragg was forced, after he declined for a long time to bring this charge, to do so. His predecessor rejected it. And so they took a dead misdemeanor and bootstrapped it into effectively trying a federal crime. But the federal crime here under election law was rejected by the Department of Justice. They didn't feel that this should be charged. So you have this crazy case that's going to go forward, and it's going to turn on the testimony of people like Michael Cohen. And Michael Cohen just recently had a judge call him a serial perjurer. And he's going to appear as the center of this case.
There you go.
Yeah, that's another thing, that the whole Cohen thing being a credible witness. It's like, my gosh. It's just, it really is insane. And my question, I guess, that I have in my mind is because we don't know how the perception will fall out, right, as this thing moves on and each case moves on. But I'm hopeful, because you and I don't believe that the American people are stupid. We believe that there are many millions that are willfully ignorant, but we don't believe they're stupid. And the question would be, what is the overall perception? How is this changing the perception of the justice system, the perception of how this is targeting Trump specifically and politically, and we'll only know that when we get closer to election.
When you see the original charge, the original state charge is falsifying business records.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. You say, well, what are you talking about? Because falsifying means you're trying to falsify business records to get the upper hand on somebody.
Right.
It's the same thing as fraud.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to do this to damage somebody, fraud, and it's like the fraud case where there were no victims. Well, how can it be fraud if there's no victims at all? And that's the precedent of 99% of fraud cases out there.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's complaining because they got ripped off because you committed fraud.
Right.
And so that's the other case. That's the Letitia James case. That's the civil case. But in this case, it's falsifying business records. Well, okay. Cohen paid the hush money to Stormy Daniels, all right? And Trump paid him back. Trump put, basically legal fees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nobody's getting ripped off because both sides knew exactly what the money was for.
Right.
Putting the generalized, and so it's like, well, unless you put hush money, then it's falsifying business records, which it isn't.
No, it's not.
It's not. So, but that is just a misdemeanor if you even get caught doing that, and that statute of limitations ran out a long time ago.
Right.
And so, well, how do you keep it alive? Well, what they said was, then they took another piece of it, which, again, precedent doesn't show that's a case, that you can be a president and still have your home address in New York or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You move into the White House. Well, you move into the White House because that's your professional building. That's not a personal building.
Right.
That isn't your personal. It may be your personal residence that, for a president, because personally you have rooms in there, but that's not and doesn't have to be at all your permanent residence. He was a resident, I believe, of Florida. Is where he is.
Yeah.
And it's where he's not paying state taxes. So the last thing he would do is do the address there. Well, they're trying to say, well, he moved and therefore he was out of state, and the statute of limitations stalls when you move out of state because he became president. That is totally legally dubious to begin with. But still, that would just be a misdemeanor. How do you get to the felonies? Well, the felonies is the fact that Trump has violated campaign finance laws because by doing this, he was doing this to keep this quiet so it would help him in the election.
Right.
And so he used, and so you could make the charge if he used campaign money, but he didn't use campaign money. He used his own money to do it. So there is no charge to leapfrog onto the federal, the federal felony charges at all. And that's the problem with this entire case. And then you look at it and you see the Department of Justice, and this has been brought up already, never went after Hillary Clinton.
Right.
And Hillary Clinton was found. Oh, and by the way, the feds, the Southern District of New York, would not go after Trump for this. The Federal Election Commission would not go after Trump for this. They all looked at it and said, sorry, we can't prosecute. There's nothing to prosecute.
Right.
And the Federal Election Commission could have come immediately, like they did with Hillary, for the $1 million that went to Perkins Coie and then to create the false dossier to set up Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got charged with, talk about falsifying business records. You didn't say that this was going for opposition research.
Right.
You said it was legal fees. Now, that is because of what you using campaign money has to be specific.
Right.
And they weren't, so they were fined hundreds of thousands of dollars. Department of Justice isn't bringing up anything against Hillary Clinton for that.
Nope.
And that's where you have the obvious two-tier system of justice because, and that's the perception, which is why you've got that poll that shows only 1 in 3 people believe that Trump did anything illegal in this, and that 1 in 3 would be the most loyal Democrats, Democrat liberals that don't care about the legalities of the case. They only care about getting Trump.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. That's all this is. Get Trump.
So, yeah, and it's but the clickbaiting on it and the glee, that you see in these anchors, we may get Trump on this, and it's the whole.
And none of them have these analysts. We mentioned this the other day, but it bears repeating. None of them have analysts that are breaking it down going, look, here's where he clearly broke the law. Here's where he clearly broke the law.
You don't see that.
You don't see that at all.
Nope.
They'd be out in full force and would have been from day one.
Yeah.
And you don't see that at all.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
After fuel, an owner-operator's second biggest variable cost is tires. To save, get as much life out of them as possible with good habits. Maintain proper inflation. It's free and easy, yet it's the highest saving maintenance you can perform on the truck. Improper inflation is by far the greatest reason tires fail early. Perform routine maintenance. If a technician can by hand initiate irregular movements in tie rod ends, kingpins, wheel bearings, and torque rods, that spells trouble. Fight irregular wear by replacing suspension components. On the steer axle, change your shocks at least as often as you change your tires. On the drive axle, replace shocks halfway through the tire's life, and when the tires are changed too. Finally, employ good driving habits. You have full control here. More conservative driving over rough surfaces helps reduce wear. Speeding, hard braking, curbing, and tight turns cause tires to wear fast. On the other hand, steady acceleration, braking, and steering can extend the life, saving a bundle. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section on the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We'll have some audio from both the House and senators yesterday, Republican senators, about the impeachment of Mayorkas and the impeachment papers taken to the Senate yesterday and where it goes from here. The Democrats are scared to death to let this go anywhere.
Yeah.
So expect them to do whatever they can. Expect Schumer to do whatever he can to bury this thing as soon as possible. One thing, and I was watching more of Mayorkas yesterday, and I've always had this opinion, and again, my opinion may differ from others, but I sense that I think it's pretty accurate, and I would think that most independents, and that's who you're focusing on, would think the same thing, and you and I have never talked about this, but Mayorkas comes across to me as an extremely cold human being.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
We've never had this.
Yeah.
He comes, and it's when you see him consistently not answer the questions over and over again. That in combination for how long he said the border was secure, ignoring what was going on, gaslighting the American public.
Yeah.
And I go back to the poll that was taken inside of Massachusetts that immigration and the border is the number one issue for them.
Yeah.
That this now has been, thanks to Governor Abbott of Texas, this national issue has been localized.
Yep.
And we'll get to more of this coming up.
Soon they'll be going into a deep dive. Make time. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Download the app. Download the app. I was talking to some people over the weekend in New York, and I said, download the app, download the app, download the app.
Yeah.
Get it. It's like, you're not up overnight. You change shift, download the app.
It's real simple. Just download the app. It's free.
Now, the easiest way is just to stay up all night. Get yourself a first shift job, because this is the first shift, not the third.
Yeah, we believe that's what you should do, or sacrifice sleep. You could do that for the show.
Oh, that was my that was my biggest point.
Yeah.
Give up sleep.
Yeah. That would be showing us how much you truly love the program. So, but if you don't truly love it that much, okay, fine.
Look, either it's blind loyalty to the show, or the hell with you.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Oh, man.
And, we're also, we're on a ton of streaming platforms, but we kind of like our app.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good app. It's free.
Yeah, we are everywhere. I did say to somebody else, so I'd have to download the app. Look, we're everywhere.
Yeah. If you already have Spotify, okay,
right.
But we like our app because it has our name on it.
I saw we're on YouTube now.
We are on YouTube. Yeah. No, they didn't put cameras in the studio for good reason.
No, there's no cameras in this. Well, they'd have to hire somebody to.
Yeah.
Unless we would switch the camera back and forth, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. No.
All right. Eric's talking, because I'd always forget.
Mm-hmm.
And like Alan would be in my ear. Eric's talking. Get it off of you picking your nose.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I apologize.
Now I think they have an auto switcher based on the audio. So if you have two cameras, it would go back and forth based on whichever one is talking. But I don't know if, first of all, let's just work on getting new computers. Then we'll talk about cameras. But yeah, it's. We don't need cameras. We're radio guys.
So artificial intelligence could do that. That's a simple task.
Yeah.
Voice out of that microphone, camera over there.
Right. Yeah, no, the setups are pretty crazy. I have a podcast studio set up at home, and it's amazing how affordable compared to what it used to be. When I started doing voiceover years ago, I was on the very first version of Pro Tools. And then all of a sudden, Pro Tools just blew up. I mean, everybody then was using Pro Tools and music and everything else. But it was, everything, the hardware's always, been more expensive. But it was, if you were going to put a studio together, it was tens of thousands of dollars. And now you can put a studio together, and a lot of people do it. Probably reasonably for a couple of $1,000s, you could get a really good studio.
Yeah, you can.
and it's pretty cool to watch.
All right, you ready? The Mayorkas impeachment. And we started talking about it before the bottom of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
But look, Democrats, as I've said before, Democrats want this thing buried because they can't win it.
Right.
It's impossible for Democrats to win it, and that's why the Republicans are, they did last week at least, threaten if you don't let this thing go to trial, well, then we'll hold up legislation. We'll do a bunch of different things. Right. I don't know if they are truly intent in doing that, but they were out in full force yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to some of the members of the Senate actually talking, the Republican Senate talking about this. But Democrats have to bury this. And I'm talking from a political consultant point of view. If I'm a Democrat's political consultant, bury it.
It's the number one issue. The border's the number one issue.
You need to bury this. Now, Schumer needs to bury it. If I'm a political consultant talking to Schumer, you need to bury this and bury it now because you can't win this.
Right.
And so
don't try to win it. Don't try and jump out in defense of Mayorkas.
Yeah,
you're only going to make it worse for you.
You can't win it because the public already has that perception. And all Republicans have to do with the trial is sit there and point out and say, here's Mayorkas on this date saying that the border is secure. Here's the border.
Yep.
Because it doesn't matter whether they, remove him from his position. The next person's going to do the same thing that Biden wants.
Mm-hmm.
This is about the 2024 election again.
Yeah.
Because Trump can jump all over this. This is what Biden's doing. Look at what Mayorkas did. Look at every single day you're going to see it. Now, the mainstream media can bury it and not cover it, which they might do, but you can't hide it. You cannot hide it anymore because people get their news from the internet. And when you look at, for example, the polling numbers, that only 1 in 3 believe Trump broke the law in the what they call the, quote, hush money case, it shows the public is paying attention.
Right.
Because if you only have 1 in 3 believe the president is guilty of some law breaking, you're talking about the most loyal Democrats who do not want to hear the specifics and the legal arguments of this.
Right.
They don't. But the rest of the country, including some Democrats, to get to that number, you've got to have some Democrats, a ton of independents, and a ton of Republicans that look at this and say it's bogus.
Right.
And what you're focusing on is getting independents. And Mayorkas, as I said, and you agreed with me on this, to me, and I noticed the longer that I've seen him over these years talk about it, and it all goes back to him, stating the border is secure. And you had conservative networks, as he was saying that, running the video behind him of the mass chaos at the border.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But because of Governor Abbott, we always say all politics is local, but there are some issues that are national that can become local. And because of Governor Abbott in Texas, it is now a local issue.
Yep.
And Mayorkas comes across as a cold, uncaring, because he has no personality at all.
Right.
He comes across as cold and uncaring.
Yeah.
And when I was looking at him the other day testifying again, I went, wow, I wonder if that's what people pick up on. I wonder if they pick up on him being cold and, uncaring. When he won't answer a simple question, you say, he's being purposely evasive. Why? Why does he see? Why is he talking about, things that we're doing everything we can to do on the border when everybody knows that's a lie? And eventually, when you do that over and over again on something like the border, and this is what I notice, I look at him and I go, man, he is one cold SOB.
Well, there's the not caring part. There's also the callousness.
Yeah.
That is part of the behavior. Then when you look into deliberate behavior. So, they always say cold and calculated, which means, all right, it's without emotion and it's deliberate and it's planned and it's part of the plan. So I think there's that connection with people if they feel that, if they get, if their perception is what ours is, it's not only does he not care about the effects on the American people, but he also is okay with putting a plan into motion and does that in a very calculated way without emotion. And that's a problem. That's where we are right now. That's why you don't want him in charge of Homeland Security.
Yeah, I would have replaced him even if you put somebody else in who can lie better.
Who
That's what you
who can do the Bill Clinton thing? The Bill Clinton thing was bad. The biting the lip. I feel your pain.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Someone who was at Wall Street Journal, someone did the story the other, or maybe National Review. Biden does not feel your pain, and you look at that, and that's what you would have to do. You have to find somebody who at least can be perceived as someone who is concerned about the issue. And Mayorkas has the same defiance and arrogance that runs through this president. And we talked about how through the staff and through his cabinet, it's all the way through. And I really, if you look at it, that was also calculated, deliberate, in that we got to find people who can do it the same way, who have that same defiance, who are going to carry out the mission and do what this president wants to be done, and the agenda stands paramount. You can't stray from that, and you have to be cold and calculated to get it done. This is why they just keep lying. Kirby, Karine Jean-Pierre, Mayorkas, they do it. They don't care. There's zero concern for the American people. And it's because that is the tone, that is the shared sentiment that runs throughout this administration. It is part of who Biden is, and it is absolutely part of who his entire cabinet and staff and administration is.
We had said during January 6th that that Republicans cannot defeat the image of people crawling up the outside of the Capitol building.
Right.
And even inside.
Yeah.
You can't defend that. They've tried.
Mm-hmm.
They can't win that imagery.
Right.
Democrats cannot win the imagery. Now, you can win, as we said, the Supreme Court looking at the January 6th and the prosecution of it, which I believe they're going to overturn the obstruction of an official proceeding, which then could destroy Smith's case against Trump,
mm-hmm.
which would be based on legal precedent.
Right.
Without question, I believe.
Right.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about the imagery of attempting to say nothing happened there. You can't win that with independence.
Right.
You just can't. And we said that from day one. And we said the Democrats are going to use that big time when it comes to 2024, and that's exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Democrats cannot win the imagery at the border.
No.
The imagery and the reality of it. Because the reality of, you've got the Los Angeles mayor saying the rich need to now buy housing. The rich need to buy housing to put the homeless in, including illegal immigrants.
Right.
You've got the Denver mayor. I saw that story yesterday saying that we have to take money away from the police. We're not defunding the police,
mm-hmm.
but we need to take money away from police in order to house, the migrants.
Mm-hmm.
This is all local issue now. It's local. You can't win it, and you're going to have Schumer try to bury this. I don't know whether he will succeed with it or not. I don't know what the Republicans are actually prepared to do in the Senate for this. But the fact is, Republicans believe they win in every scenario. They win more if it goes to trial.
Right.
They still win if the vote happens and all Democrats stand by Mayorkas. They still win because you can't beat the imagery.
Right.
If he's not removed from office, you win. If he's removed from office, you win.
Right.
I really wonder whether the Republicans believe they win more if he's not removed from office.
I was thinking about this last week when they decided to hold back on sending it to the Senate at the request of some Senate GOPers. I thought to myself, okay, so if you follow the logic, it was basically, and they talked about this, look, it's better to get it to the Senate at the beginning of a work week because they were winding up their work week last week and have more time with it. And I think to let this thing linger in the Senate, basically with Chuck Schumer's back against the wall on this, works for the GOP. Where it is now, but I don't know. I don't have confidence it will. I don't know how you suspend it in this state that it's in right now if you're the GOP because you don't have that control.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, we'll play some audio coming up probably the top of the hour on the trial, or if there will be an impeachment trial of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas.
Yeah.
I really do expect that Schumer will do everything to bury it.
I think so.
You take the hit now.
Yeah.
This far out, but you can't have a 3-week trial if you're the Democrats on this because you can't win it.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to play some audio yesterday on the Mayorkas was testifying before the House Homeland Security Committee. I guess part of the time had to be as the House was walking over the impeachment papers to the Senate. Just want to play a clip here. This is Representative Michael McCall of Texas going after Mayorkas.
Mr. Secretary, you took an oath to protect the country from enemies, both foreign and domestic. I believe in many respects you violated that oath. Let me start with the Immigration Nationality Act. It states that, quote, the government shall take into custody any alien that has committed an aggravated felony. Those are dangerous, violent criminals. End of quote. And as you know, you're an attorney, as am I, shall is mandatory language. It doesn't say maybe, it doesn't say, well, whatever you think at the time. It says shall. Those are words by the Congress. Mandatory language means you shall detain. Yet in September 2021, your memo to your Border Patrol agents titled Guidance for Enforcement of Civil Immigration Law, you instructed your Border Patrol officers not to take prior criminal conduct into account when taking enforcement action. Whether a non-citizen poses a current threat to public safety is not to be determined according to bright lines or categories. Our personnel should not rely on the fact of a conviction or the result of a database search alone. In other words, you directed your own agents on the ground on the border to defy the laws of Congress, to release violent criminals into our countries. And you know what aggravated felon means under the statute, but for those who don't, it includes murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and drug traffickers. And God knows how many have been released into this country due to this policy that you issued in September 2021. My state took this up to appeal to the Supreme Court, where Justice Kavanaugh asked whether impeachment would be warranted for an official who defied the laws passed by Congress. President Biden's own Solicitor General replied that such steps would be warranted, quote, in the face of a dramatic abdication of a statutory responsibility by the executive. In my view, you've defied the law, you defied congressional intent in the best interest of the American people, and you've made this country, sir, a far more dangerous place, not to mention the hundreds of those in the terror watch list who have gotten into this country. How do you respond?
Mr. Chairman, I have 3 points to make. One, you mischaracterize the enforcement guidelines that I published.
I read directly from them, sir.
Secondly, we have removed more aggravated felons each month than the prior administration did. Third, my enforcement guidelines mirror to a great extent, and in the quoted language, prior enforcement guidelines that other administrations have issued. The fact of the matter is that we enforce the law. We deem public security.
All right, I'm going to reclaim my time on that. You're saying you enforce the law when you told your agents, don't take into account prior criminal conduct. Aggravated felons do not take into account the fact they maybe have a murder conviction or a rapist conviction, or, well, that's what's under the statute, sir. And you told them, don't take that into account. And you can say you've had the best record ever as a Secretary of Homeland. You can say that, but nobody believes it.
That's the problem right there.
Yep.
Because anybody can understand what was going. This is what you wrote. This is the law.
Yep.
Well, you're misinterpreting it. I'm reading directly from it.
Yep.
You're misinterpreting it. No, he's not.
Yeah, it is someone who's part of an administration who misinterprets everything.
Yeah,
and this is the problem Mayorkas has. His own words. The border is secure. The border is secure. The border is secure. That, and it's what we started the show with, that resonates with people, and they look at it and go, this guy is lying through his teeth. That's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, I mean, you don't have to get into anything else on this discussion. The border's number one. This is why the Democrats can't win this. This is why Schumer has to bury this, is because you've got to get it off the table as soon as possible and behind you as soon as possible. And you've got to do everything you can to do that, because you're not going to win this issue. Right now, it's number one with the American people. And Mayorkas repeating those words, and then everybody repeating them on social media, and it's very simple. Him saying the border is secure, which is a blatant lie coming from the guy who's in charge of securing the border. There's no, that is 2 + 2 = 4 all day. And you don't have to get into it, and the American people don't have to spend time on it. This is why the GOP benefits, because the GOP should be doing better in messaging. On this one, the messaging is done for you by Mayorkas.
And the problem, one of the counts is lying to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's absurd. I haven't lied to Congress. You said the border was secure. Well, what does secure mean? Actually, the defense of Democrats now are the fact that we've been changing the definition of words.
Yeah.
And therefore, in our opinion, the words don't mean what you believe they mean. Now, you may be able to sell that to a Democratic senator who won't vote to remove you from office. you're not going to convince the American public of that.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
The problem is that Mayorkas believes he's debating with the GOP. He's not. He's debating with the American people.
And the question is, for most Americans, I get this more than anything, why are they doing this?
Right.
Why would they lie?
Right.
And it's like, well, you'd have to ask them. Now, we can give you the possibilities that they believe, and Republicans brought it up this week. Well, if you don't have any type of voter ID and you're not requesting voter ID, can illegals vote? Then the other one that actually is more of a concern is the fact of we do the census based on the number of people in a particular state, not the number of citizens.
Right.
And so it can change everything to the number of electoral votes that your state has, which also has to do with redistricting and everything else, and the Electoral College.
Right.
You know, how many electors you get in your particular state can be amped up by having millions of people who shouldn't be here in the country. You're not going to sell that to the majority of Americans that that's a good thing to be doing. Because when you look at it, you say, okay, what is the reason that they're lying about it? Why have they lied all the time about what's going on at the border until they couldn't lie anymore? And then Mayorkas continues to lie. We're putting our full efforts in. We're doing everything we possibly can. Biden, the same thing. Everyone knows it's a lie now.
Right. Yeah.
And you and I were having that discussion. We've had that a couple of times, you know, about the fact that everything's a lie right now. Everything.
Right.
They just keep doing it. They have nowhere else to go except to say that's not happening. From, inflation. It's not really a problem.
Well, and when you're doing that across the board, and they are, you just keep you just hold the line. You keep telling the lie because nothing is changing. It's not changing anything. No one's going to prison for lying. Nothing's going to fall down because, they're lying. Nothing's going to implode because they're lying. Things have already imploded. That's already happened. They're just lying about the implosion.
And one thing you hear more than that I hear is, how come nobody's held accountable for all this stuff? Well, here are the Republicans attempting to hold somebody accountable by doing whatever they can to kick him out of his office. And you have the Democrats saying, no, everything's fine at the border.
Right.
Well, you can't have it both ways.
No.
Or that it's Trump's fault. Or you cannot blame this on prior administrations. And you can't sit there and say, well, other administrations have done that. Well, sorry. Doesn't matter what other administrations have done. It matters what you do and the pictures of what's been happening at the border and what's going on in all these cities, which is now local news.
Right.
And you and we had said this early on. We said that what Abbott is doing, by doing this, we know that the mainstream media ignores what's happening at the border. Local TV news won't.
No, they won't.
They're looking for anything. And that's why this thing has blown up, is because local media always looking for a story. Well, you look in Denver right now where the mayor came out and, well, we want to take money from the police department, but it's not defunding the police in order to house the house the homeless and the migrants. It's like, well, you can't sell that. And everybody covers it and says, well, we know that's not true.
Right.
Because at that point, when you are overwhelmed by the migrants in your city, it is no longer a right versus left issue.
No.
It's an issue of panic that we can't handle this. And then all of a sudden it becomes a safety issue. Well, we need to get money somewhere. All right, we're going to cut all these things in the budget that you like and benefits you have to house and take care of the migrants that come from the Biden administration because the federal government won't do anything about it. It goes way beyond then what's happening at the border. It's what's happening in your city.
Yep. And that's, again, why they don't win it. The Democrats lose this all day long because the American people see it. And you're right, it's not left or right issue. It's a border issue.
Yeah, it becomes an issue that isn't left or right anymore.
Right.
It's an issue, and it becomes that way because it's an issue that the left can't defend.
Well, that's
you
the thing,
can't
is that,
defend what's going. There is no defense of it anymore.
Well, we're not hearing what we heard years ago, and that was, no, we shouldn't be putting up walls. We should be tearing them down. We should welcome people from. You're not hearing any of that from the left. The rank and file left is not doing that at all.
When you have the Democrat consultant Douglas Schoen a couple of weeks ago on thehill.com say that the Democrats need to reverse this and put up a barrier or a wall.
Yeah.
When a Democrat is stating that you need to talk about barriers and walls, and it's something that you need to do.
Yeah.
Oh my God! It's like that was a head shaker.
It's because, again, it's recognizing a couple of Democrats basically recognize that Trump is connecting with the American people on the issues. And on that issue, you connect all day long when you say we need to secure the border.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. The Senate and House Republicans held a press briefing about the impeachment of Mayorkas and the trial and bringing the papers over. Here is part of that from yesterday.
Chairman Green. Thank you, sir. First, let me thank the senators for sharing their pulpit for a day. We appreciate it. And I want to thank each of you for being here. The American people need to know about all of this. And I appreciate you communicating it to them. I had the unbelievable privilege when I was in the United States Army of interviewing Saddam Hussein the night we caught him. And I asked Hussein why he invaded Kuwait. And he shared that essentially he was the king of the world and could do whatever he wanted. And the thought struck me at that moment, that old adage that says absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you concentrate power into the hands of, in this case, one man, you get tyranny every time. Our founders were brilliant. Following the philosophy of Montesquieu, they spread power out between three separate branches of government, each with their own responsibilities, separate from the other. And our responsibility was to write the law. And the executive branch was to execute the law. Not to pick and choose which ones they wanted to, but to execute the laws. The Immigration and Nationality Act is clear, shall detain. And in the case of criminal felons, shall detain and deport. The law says it. Nowhere does the law say to a district attorney, you shall capture every murderer, but in the case of this law, it says you shall detain everyone. Mr. Mayorkas has worked to create policies intentionally to subvert those laws, totally disregarding this co-equal branch of government. I took the oath of the Constitution for the first time at 17 on the plane at West Point. That Constitution means something to me. This is how we get freedom, by spreading power out. When one executive branch official thinks they can just willy-nilly do whatever they want, disregard the other branch of government, that is a road to tyranny. That's why this means so much to me, and that's why we spent 10-plus months investigating and resulting in the first ever impeachment of a sitting cabinet secretary.
What's the argument from Democrats? I know you do the same that I do, is you sit and watch something like that, and I agree with everything that Mark Green said. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I say, what's the weakest part of his argument? Where's the weak point? Because I always do that, because you need to know what the opposition is going to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the weak point is. I can't tell you what it is.
No.
And I know the left would say, well, you're just a partisan and you never look at the other side. You and I always want to hear what the argument is from the other side, because basically it's so dang weak. They don't have anything, and we're very, very inquisitive as to how do they justify it in their own minds. So we always look at what the opposition is saying and how they may attack our point of view. That's what we do for a living. that's why I've said I don't know how the Democrats can't let this go on. Schumer has to bury it because they can't win it. There isn't an argument against what the Republicans are stating.
We have a long time practice of going after Republicans for not making the strong argument, for not making the strong case, for not focusing on everything you need to focus on in any given situation. And what you heard there was complete. And you're not going to be able to debate it. This is why the lie really is the only game from this administration. The border is secure. Everything is fine. Over and over again, you just repeat the lie. Well, that's your interpretation. Well, that's your interpretation. Now, again, the effect of it and what they don't get, what the left doesn't get, what this administration doesn't get, is that you're not debating the GOP. Mayorkas isn't sitting there debating the GOP. He's debating the American people.
Right.
And you're not going to win that with the American people.
How do we know that? When you have the mayor of Los Angeles telling all the wealthy, you need to be buying homes for these migrants that are here, the homeless program and the migrants. Right. When you have the mayor of Denver talking about the fact that we aren't defunding the police, we're just taking money from the police to give it to migrants.
Right.
What's lacking in there? There's no mention of the GOP at all.
No. No, right now their biggest problem is with their own base.
Adams tried to do it, but it doesn't succeed. He tried to blame Adams, but you can't do it because, as we know, Biden has flown hundreds of thousands more to cities than Abbott has ever done.
Right.
Abbott just put it in the news.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. Well, okay, looking at the Israel-Hamas situation. By the way, isn't it interesting the number of they closed the other day, the Golden Gate Bridge down for a while, all over New York and in Chicago, the pro-terrorist faction of American protesters. But this Wall Street Journal editorial board, Hamas rejects Biden's hostage deal again. It's interesting because you really don't see that story anywhere.
Right.
You take a scan of it. It may be there, but this was not a prominent story yesterday. That's why we said the Wall Street Journal editorial page at times is actually a news page.
Yeah, right. Covering more.
Yep. Biden's strategy of pressuring Israel and pleading with Hamas for a ceasefire and a hostage deal has meant one more dead end. Hamas rejected another offer over the weekend, countering with new demands designed to throw the negotiations into disarray. As State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller explained, Israel moved a significant way in submitting that proposal, but Hamas rejected it. Quote, from the State Department, it is Hamas that is the barrier and the obstacle to a ceasefire in Gaza. The Times of Israel reports that Hamas rejected every single clause of the proposal brokered by the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar. Hamas now demands a 6-week truce in which it releases no hostages while Israel stops fighting, withdraws from Gaza's cities, and commits to a permanent ceasefire, a withdrawal from Gaza, and a return of all Palestinians, including Hamas, to northern Gaza. In other words, an Israeli surrender. Only in the second phase, over another 6 weeks while Israel executes that surrender, would Hamas release some hostages in exchange for terrorists. After months of negotiations over the release of 40 hostages among the women, older men, and the sick, Hamas now says it can only produce 20, and it wants far more Palestinian terrorists in return. It demands 30 for each civilian hostage and 50 for each captive female Israeli soldier, including 30 terrorists who are serving life sentences. 50 for each captive female Israeli soldier, including 30 terrorists who are serving life sentences. As usual, the needs of the Palestinian civilians means nothing to Hamas. But how about the needs of the U.S. president? Mr. Biden staked his Gaza strategy on coercing Israel to make the concessions to get a deal and cease fire, but the holdup wasn't on the Israeli side. The more desperate the president appears for a ceasefire, the more distant it became. When he blamed Israel for all civilian suffering and demanded new Israeli concessions, Hamas raised its demands. Thank you to the Americans, as one Israeli commentator put it on Tuesday, for your deep understandings of the principles of the Middle Eastern bazaar. He didn't mean that as a compliment. Hamas scorns a deal because the president has given it reason to expect to get the ceasefire it wants without releasing any hostages. This is where we blew up a couple of weeks ago with the president.
Right. He doesn't care.
He doesn't care about Americans. He doesn't care. And he doesn't really care about ending this war.
No.
Because he's doing the opposite of it.
Right.
Hamas has no reason to agree to anything. How's the war going to end if Hamas won't agree or negotiate to anything?
Right.
Because the president of the United States is a damn fool and idiot. Mr. Biden has been slowly delinking the two while creating a public breach with Israel. Doubtless he thought about the signal these steps would send to Dearborn, Michigan. Did he think about the signal he's sending to Hamas about the 5 American hostages who may still be alive? Hamas is unlikely to cut a deal until it feels a knife on its neck, as it did when Israel stormed Gaza City. That yielded the release of 105 hostages. But since Mr. Biden declared himself the protector of Hamas's final stronghold and Israel withdrew most of its troops, the odds of a deal have declined. The best hope on the horizon is from Iran's miscalculation in striking Israel directly. This gives Mr. Biden the opportunity to reset his policy and exert real pressure. Well, it gives him the opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't believe he will, though.
No. He's got every opportunity right now to defund Hamas. He's not doing it.
No, he's not. And so, we continue to go down this. I mean, it's just a stupid road, but it shows you how the president, like I said, it's as anti-American as you could possibly imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And the hostages aren't even talked about. The American hostages have never really been talked about in the media or anything. Their lives mean nothing. Absolutely nothing.
How that's not only a story, but the story right now just boggles my mind.
And look, we have a history of this. We said when the president was, advocating for all these lockdowns and shutdowns and everything else, and we said, this is a load of horse manure. Mm-hmm. He's got the southern border open. He doesn't care if COVID comes into the United States.
No.
It was obvious. He didn't care. He didn't care about Americans when it came to the border. He doesn't care about Americans when it comes to the insanity of spending and the inflation that comes with it. He doesn't give a damn about Americans when his policy will skyrocket electricity prices and hurt the poor the most. He doesn't care about Americans when he talks about we need to drastically increase corporate taxes, when we know that's passed on to the consumer, which is the American citizen, and harms the poor the most. Oh, by the way, we had blasted Mark Cuban yesterday for his whole being patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, we hit on this, but we didn't hit it hard enough. Well, I'll say I did. I won't say you did. I'll take responsibility because it's what I felt afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I even told you afterwards. Said, and it was like near the end of the show, it's like, got to make sure we mention it tomorrow, where Cuban's saying the second most patriotic thing you can do other than serving this country.
He compared himself
right
to those who serve,
right,
that are willing to put their life on the line for freedom. He compared him paying his taxes, which he's compelled to do by law, to service in the military. It's as patriotic as serving.
Well, he said second.
Yeah,
it's the next
Fair enough.
thing, but it's still to put the two. It really doesn't matter because to put the two in the same sentence is reprehensible.
Is it second? Is it really even second? No,
it's not second.
Is it on the list of patriotism?
No.
Abiding by the law. It's required by law. It's stupid.
Oh, yeah, it's just stupid.
Oh, yeah, he's patriotic. It's right up there with serving in the military. Uh-huh.
It's second to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing more patriotic is serving in the military.
Right. This is how, the lunatic fringe of the left, which Mark Cuban has always been. I know he's tried to portray himself at times as more in the middle, but that shows you right there what he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to virtue signal and say, well, this is second to serving this country.
Mm-hmm.
You out of your frickin' mind?
Yeah. Yeah, you know nothing. Or you believe people are stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a moronic comment.
But with
and he said, by the way, he mentioned, I've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't doubt that.
And neither do I.
Yeah. It's but it is how you virtue signal.
Wonder if he continued arguing the point yesterday. I didn't even check. I didn't see any follow-up on it.
Right.
I didn't see any, because if I were him, I'd just shut up and move away.
I would have made a joke if I were Mark Cuban. Got my taxes done. Man, I can't believe how much I'm getting back. And then just let the trolls go to work. What? You're getting money back? Just let them go to work. No, you got a virtue signal. It's patriotic to virtue signal. It's just stupid. And thinking you were going to win that. Man, he got shredded.
Yeah, he did on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I just would have turned it into a fun moment.
I didn't see any update on it, at least in Google here.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. But again, is this a regular Google or Google Hamas that I'm looking at here?
Yeah.
You see the protesters at Google.
Yeah. Like there was any doubt, right?
Yeah.
Did you see the one protester standing inside a Starbucks?
Yeah. That
with a megaphone. Hey, dude, you're inside. You don't need the megaphone. Everybody can hear your radical voice. It's, what's interesting, too, is the left getting hit harder and harder and harder by the radicals. And why is that? Well, the reason is because politically, if you're running for office, if you're in office now, you can't get out there with the radicals and chant death to America, but you can acknowledge them. You can wave to them from here, but you can't jump on the death to America chant bandwagon. And that's the problem they have, because the radicals lead the party. This is why we've been talking about their convention this summer and how intrigued I am about how that is all going to play out. You can't ignore these radicals. They will not be ignored.
He did not start a new thread yesterday.
Okay. All right.
So, from what I can
The
see.
other one's still probably going.
Oh, yeah, there's over 13,000 responses to it.
Mm-hmm.
But as we had said, the one thing that we noticed yesterday, and this is where when Cuban came out and said that, then talked about, how, was communicating that corporate taxes should be raised because Trump lowering corporate taxes hurt. We're like, oh, my God, Mark Cuban is advocating. He claims, virtue signaling that he paid his taxes, and it's the second most patriotic thing you can do, as he's calling for an increase in corporate taxes, which is a stealth tax on the consumer, which hurts the poor the most. And so we were advising the trolls on the right to troll better.
Yeah.
Troll like we do for things like that.
Right. Yeah. That's insane. It's again, I don't know, but that's what you got to do, I guess. If that's your mindset, you've got to, show everyone, hey, look at how much I paid in taxes. Look at me. Look at everything that I fund. It's second only to military service.
I love this one. I noticed that despite you saying you agree with the Biden administration that the rich should pay their fair share, you continue paying the least amount of taxes possible. I guess you hate America after all.
All right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here. SCOTUS and January 6th. We'll get to that coming up. Here you go. Powell speaks and states the obvious. No rate cuts are coming.
Yeah, we knew that. The market was all drunk in mid to late December going, hey, yeah, we're going to start seeing those rates drop probably in March. And we were like, wait a minute. I mean, you and I have pretty much come to the conclusion we're the last two sober people in this whole equation. But seriously, how drunk are you? And then we got closer to March. Yeah, maybe not March, maybe June. And then Powell, of course. Yeah, nah, we don't know when.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, he's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I love this story. Now, this is a couple of days old and there's an update to it, but I want to give you the original story that came out on April 12th.
Okay.
You ready for this?
All right.
German transport minister is under fire for weekend driving ban threat.
No driving on the weekends?
The German transport minister, Volker Wissing, attracted backlash on Friday after threatening to impose weekend driving bans in the summer to abide by the climate protection law in the latest dispute with Berlin's ruling coalition over decarbonizing greenhouse emissions of Europe's biggest economy fell to the lowest level in 70 years. But the transport sector has been consistently failing to meet its climate targets. According to the current climate protection law, the minister responsible for underperforming sectors must launch an immediate program to put them back on track. The transport minister has so far resisted introducing such a program for the sector, saying incoming amendments to the climate protection law would allow the sector to miss its CO2 cuts if Germany's total emissions target is met. The transport ministry said reforming the sector is more challenging than other areas of the economy because it affects people's everyday lives, which cannot be changed quickly. For months, the government coalition of Social Democrats, Greens, and pro-business FDP has been in negotiations about the amendments, but has not yet reached an agreement. And he's saying, look, and by the way, they finally did apparently reach an agreement on it, which is, okay, we're going to look at the total. We're not going to break it down, because what they're saying is you break it down to every sector. Well, then you've got to get the transportation sector in line, and the only way to do that is to ban weekend driving.
Right.
The comprehensive and indefinite driving bans on Saturday and Sundays, threatened last week by Germany's transport minister, had the desired effect, and Germany's left-wing ruling coalition agreeing to moderating climate protection laws. As one would expect, the far-left Greens were livid, as were their allies in the climate advocacy space. The transport minister has wasted 2 years blocking every climate protection measure in road traffic, and now he's coming up with horror scenarios, so he won't have to do anything in the future either, said Greenpeace. The planned amendment to the emissions reduction law allows climate goals to be reviewed for compliance by looking at all the sectors together instead of individually.
Yeah, but we know who the problem child is there. It's the transportation sector.
If the overall target is missed 2 years in a row, then the federal government is to decide in which sector and with what measures the permitted total amount of carbon dioxide emissions is to be achieved by 2030.
In other words, we'll be back in 2 years with this same stupid idea.
Yeah, I just love it. Okay, we can't get down to the level you want. No weekend driving. No driving on Saturday and Sundays. That RV?
I'm sorry. The Autobahn's closed. The bear out front should have told you.
Yep. No more fun on the Autobahn.
Are you... Whoa! Where do you think you're going, mister? Put some shoes on. Get to walking.
Hey, we're not far away. Remember Obama's transportation secretary? My job is to coerce people out of vehicles. Out of their own.
Let's Google and see if Ray LaHood is living in Germany now. He's an advisor.
He only visits on the weekends.
Yeah, right. Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine that? I'm sorry. We're not going to be at the game. No driving on the weekends. Try that in the U.S.
How do we get to the football soccer games?
How do the players get there?
They buy carbon credits.
Oh, no. Helicopter. We said driving. We didn't say anything about helicopter.
Right, because the aviation sector.
Exactly.
Right. So private planes
right.
and helicopters are okay.
That's right. The new wind-powered planes, with the wind turbines on the front. You've seen them.
I'm serious about that. I really wonder if you just posted if you weren't political, just posted,
the
new invention is out there, the wind-powered plane, with wind turbines. Look at this. This plane has 4 wind turbines on it. That the wind comes, moves the propeller, creates the electricity, which then makes the plane move. That's all you got to explain.
Yeah, you couldn't do this on a campus that would have engineering students,
No, this has to be in a non-engineering school.
It would spoil it immediately.
But I wonder how many people would say, what a great idea this is.
Yeah.
A wind-powered plane.
Right.
Why didn't we think of this earlier?
Yeah. My solar-powered tanning bed.
Yeah, but that actually works.
It's a lawn chair. It works. It works. And but I love the idea. I love the fact that someone actually talked about it. They floated that idea. Now, the problem is sometimes when you float stuff in the wind, it comes flying back in your face. But this idea of no driving on the weekend.
Now, I don't know about the rest of the country, but living in Texas, as I have now almost over a quarter of a century, if you take my 2 times here, I have a feeling that people would not abide by that rule.
Well, here's the thing. How would you enforce it? Logistically, there would be no way to really enforce it. I mean, you would have police officers, obviously, that would have to be pulling pretty much everybody over, anybody in a car. That's the whole point.
I have a feeling you'd find a lot of police chiefs that would say, we do not want to be a part of enforcing this law.
Yeah, because otherwise it would be roadblocks. I mean,
yeah,
right?
Roadblocks and barriers on every road.
I mean, that would be the only way to do it. Yeah.
Or be like during COVID. Remember those driving bans? God, how stupid was that?
Yeah.
I remember you and we came in and we got the letter, the permission letter that we were supposed to carry with us.
Yeah. That's no cop ever set eyes on, ever.
Yeah. I wonder if any cop pulled over anyone driving a vehicle during that time.
In any state, right.
In any state. Remember, it was if you were going to work or the store.
Right.
Well, that's my life.
That's pretty much where anybody is going at any given moment. And prove that I'm not going to the store.
Where are you going? I'm going to the store. What store? The liquor store.
Yeah.
The pot.
The bar store.
In many states, the pot store.
Yeah.
All right, we're pulling you over. We've got this disease, COVID. You're not supposed to be on the road unless you're heading to the store or work. What's going on? Hey, dude, I'm headed to the head shop, the vape shop, and then
I'm going to
the
buy
liquor
some
store.
weed. I'm just going to buy some weed. Okay.
Okay, you're on.
Carry on.
Where are you going? I'm going to church. Put them in jail.
Yeah, exactly. Are there others? Well, yeah, there's a whole congregation.
Oh.
They'll do a stakeout at the church.
There's a whole congregation? So this is
then you're conspiracy.
Conspiracy, then you're a criminal enterprise. Rico!
Conspiracy to commit worship.
Where's Fanny? I mean, Fawny.
By the way, we're really not that far off.
No, we're not.
That wasn't really over the top.
No, that's the whole point. It wasn't. By the way, that's
people were arrested for going to church. Right. And if you want to make up laws, the conspiracy to worship.
Right.
You formed an organization to commit a crime.
You formed. Wait a minute. You formed an organization.
The church.
All of you together because this didn't exist before.
Right.
The carpooling and everything else to go. Remember, they were going to the parking lot.
Yep.
They were staying in their own cars. It didn't matter.
Right.
And so, yeah, wow, I'm glad you made that statement. By the way, this isn't over the top.
No.
Because it already happened.
And these are all things that happen.
And if Fani is trying to make the RICO case against a political campaign being a criminal enterprise,
right.
Well, then if you are part of a church, which is an enterprise, but form another group where you communicate to break the current law
right.
or executive order put in by the governor or your mayor to not drive and not sit in a parking lot for church services in your individual vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, then, if you're doing that with others, isn't that a criminal enterprise, and does the RICO law apply?
Well, if you're Bonnie Willis, then it has to, right?
It would have to, yeah.
You have an organization.
And John Stossel had something that I saw on YouTube about a week and a half ago. I think I did mention it on the air, but it's worth mentioning again. And it showed like this kid out there in California, like in the surf near a pier, and the police boat's chasing him because he's out in the water. He's violating COVID rules being out in the water. There's nobody near him.
Right.
And he's out there and the boat's circling around, and it's like, oh, my God. I mean, you just when you go back and look at this stuff, and then he talked about these people that were arrested, they all decided to go, to this lookout point and look at the sunset.
Yeah.
And they were arrested in their vehicles alone. They were with family members. I mean, they just decided to drive to do it, and they were all busted for it.
Right.
It's like, oh, my God. You're right. We're not far from it.
No, I mean, we're really not far off at all.
Yeah.
It's all okay. Some of the movies that say based on real events, what we just did is closer to real events than many of those Hollywood movies.
Well, because like the fantasy Civil War where Texas and California fight on the same side of the Civil War.
About half of John Wick is not true. Roughly half.
I am encouraged to go see Civil War now because I want to see how they play California and Texas.
I know.
Fighting, the Civil War against the United States government.
I know. Yeah. No, I've been curious about that movie.
No.
Because it's at the top of mind and all these, everybody, repeating the whole Civil War thing over and over again. I'm like, okay. I guess now I got to go check it out. I probably won't go to a theater. I'll wait for 3 weeks. It'll be on Amazon.
I was telling my dad about that, and he just said, about the Civil War thing. And he goes, well, the best thing is if there's a war, you and I don't have to fight in it. Because we won't even be drafted. We're too old.
You know what?
And I'm like, well, then let's go forward with this thing. As long as I don't have to fight.
I thought about that the other day and offended myself. I thought about the other day. I forget what it was. Oh, well, I was thinking about basically, where we are geopolitically, with Russia, North Korea, with China, with Iran. And I thought, man, if they, if they came up with a draft right now, we'd all have to. And then I thought, then the, old man voice in my head was like, what's this we? No, you're not going to be drafted. And then I was like, what? Started debating myself. What do you mean? I'm too old. I was offended. But that's, it's, that whole Civil War thing. I still think probably the best depiction of anything would be if they did and it would have to be a series, not a movie. But if a state was to secede, what it would take. And you'd have to go through, by the way, it would have to be written by a lot of conservatives because, you don't focus on just the emotional, part of it of, we're no longer part of the U.S. and we're going to, no, it would have to be written and you would have to go through it. In my opinion, you'd have to go through the actual process of what it would take a state to do that.
Right, because you're not going to get out, even if the country agreed to let you out, you're going to have to take your share of the debt.
Right.
You can't escape that.
Right. You got to buy back the national parks. You got to buy back the interstates.
So there's actually the legal business portion of it that would have to be done.
Yep. And then you got to talk about borders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And how you're going to secure the border.
Mayorkas would be in charge of that.
Yeah, we would hire him immediately. He's clearly doing a great job.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Roadside inspections all begin with the driver interview, during which the officer will gather basic information from the driver and prepare the driver for the inspection. The officer will also be evaluating the driver, determining if the driver can speak English, is under the influence of anything, has an illness, or is fatigued. The officer will ask the driver for required documents, including vehicle and driver credentials, the driver's log, and shipment paperwork. The officer may also conduct a vehicle inspection. Before beginning the inspection, the officer will take steps to make sure the inspection can be done safely. These include chalking the wheels, wearing personal protective equipment, and explaining what will be required of the driver. The driver needs to pay close attention to these instructions so that the vehicle inspection can be conducted in a manner that is safe for the inspection official. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, Mayorkas is an alien. He really is. I mean,
yeah, he is. Look, he owns a hairless cat, and there's no doubt about that.
Dr. Evil's brother.
He really is, and he lives in a lair. He lives in a lair, and there are probably in that lair some sharks with lasers. That's all I'm going to say.
It was funny because I remember when he first came out, I said, he reminds me of one of the evil characters on Star Trek, and somebody sent me a picture. They knew exactly what I was talking about and sent me a picture of the original Star Trek. And I'm like, yeah, that's the guy that looks like Mayorkas.
Right. Yeah.
And so from that point on, we said Mayorkas is an alien. And, you know, we had talked about it a little bit earlier, but he's a huge problem for the Democrats right now. And watching him this week, you get to me, it's so strong, the imagery that he's just cold and uncaring and doesn't care.
That's it. And you're not going to be able to turn that around.
No.
You just aren't.
$866-90-RED-EYE. Now's your chance to be the caller. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I was mentioning it earlier. Googlers Against Genocide lead sit-ins and protests coast to coast at the tech giant's office. Google workers led sit-ins at headquarters from coast to coast, protesting the tech company's contract with the Israeli military and the company's alleged complicity in the Israel-Hamas war. Tech workers both at Amazon and Google have long protested Project Nimbus, which is Google and Amazon's $1.2 billion contract with the Israeli government and military. The tech workers who organized the group No Tech for Apartheid said the Israeli military will use Google technology for genocidal means. These people really are lunatic. I mean, they're absolute lunatics.
Yeah, they are.
These are just
they're radicals to the core.
Absolute lunatics that we're dealing with here.
Yep.
It's just, you shake your head. Absolutely shake your head.
Well, what's interesting, too, is that we talk about the Democratic Party and the fact that the far left and these radicals, the far left has led the party for many years now, or, a number of years. And the radicals won't have it any other way. They have to have control of the party. Now you introduce that into the private sector. Look, we've always known Google is a liberal company, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't any secret. But when you talk about this kind of radical behavior also being associated with Google, because, as the entire reason they're protesting is in part Google's relationship with Israel. Well, Google management has to iron that out with the Israelis and the rest of the world. You're going to have to, you got to keep the business going, and you've got radicals in your organization, and that would bring up a lot of questions for me if I'm doing business with a company like that. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. They're willing to do these sit-ins. How far are they willing to go for their cause? We have to have great concern here if people within your organization are protesting to this level. So I'm guessing that's already a conundrum there at Google. We just haven't heard how bad it might be in terms of the business side. But I'm curious. But the radicals aren't going away. I mean, the clip that was on social media of the one inside a Starbucks. And they seem to be alone. I mean, I didn't see any others. Did you? I just saw the one walking back and forth, and it was just a short clip that I saw, so maybe I didn't see the whole thing. Just the one with the bullhorn. You don't need the bullhorn indoors. And when you're alone, you don't need the bullhorn. You need the bullhorn, outside with a crowd, right? So everyone can hear you.
Well, maybe there was a dual purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe the protester was in there to be pro-Hamas and pro-union for Starbucks.
Well, why not? You have you rented the bullhorn.
Yeah.
You might as well make the best use of it.
Yeah. Is that how you get bullhorns? Can you rent them?
I think it's a rental thing. I just assume that. I could be wrong. Are they buying it? Because, man, that's a big investment. You're going to go full bullhorn for one Starbucks location, and you're going to be inside? Maybe not. Maybe a cheerleading cone. Maybe you start with that.
Well, the last time I saw a bullhorn inside was in Private Parts and Howard Stern doing the traffic reporter.
There you go.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Kill the white man.
Right.
Kill the white man.
Right.
That's from the movie. I'm not advocating to kill the white man.
No, that's just from the movie. Yeah.
From the movie.
Yeah, to be clear.
We heard Gary McNamara was advocating killing the white man.
Isn't he Irish? What's wrong with Gary?
Well, I hate myself, too.
People go all Chris Hansen, and all of a sudden, Gary turned on himself. There's there's the problem with the, well, I guess it wouldn't be Chris Hansen. It's, what's his name from the other guy? There's the problem with the radicals is that they're going to run in, they're basically, fighting right or aiming at their own. The radical protesters haven't really taken on anybody except for others on the left, if you look at it. It's like they're trying to pull others from the left in. the whole approach of silence is violence and that whole thing. And so they've got to be angry, but they're really not taking on, we know in Chicago, don't let them have the convention here. The radicals are shouting that. But this is the way it was always going to go. They're angry at the Biden administration. They're angry at Democrats. Google is angry at Google. It really is the
Genocide Joe.
Right. It's the liberal circular firing squad that has gone to the radical level now. That's where we are.
I've mentioned before that I never watched it in its original run, but it's on all the time everywhere.
Yeah.
Or it was. I haven't seen it lately. But the show Becker with Ted Danson as the doctor in the inner city.
Yeah.
And he's just and looking back at that ran from like the late 90s, to like 2004, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And I really view that show as a precursor of what the left, because obviously in the show, he's more left populist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's against political correctness, but he's left populist.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but he's angry at everything. He's constantly angry 24/7. He's never happy. He's always angry. And I went, oh, okay. That was, okay, these writers knew what the left was going to become. Angry at everything 24/7.
Right.
And so I was thinking of that as I saw this story yesterday, because John Mellencamp apparently.
Here we go. You just have to say Mellencamp. It's like, all right, fine.
Famous singer and liberal activist John Mellencamp was involved in a tense exchange with concertgoers after fans became irritated that he paused his concert to promote President Joe Biden.
Oh.
Mellencamp used his time on stage in Toledo to urge the audience to vote for Biden, but was met with immediate backlash. People in the crowd began to heckle the star, which seemed to trigger him to get caught up in a negative exchange with his fans.
Oh, man.
One person could be heard shouting, "Play some music," in a viral video of the moment that has been posted on social media. What do you think I've been doing, you
blankety blank? Yeah.
Cock-a-doodle-doo?
Yeah.
He didn't say that. It was the other thing.
Right.
As soon as the male audience member urged Mellencamp to get back to performing, others in the crowd shared the same sentiment. Loud boos and murmurs could be heard from the crowd as fans pressured the star to put on the show that they were expecting to see.
Yeah.
The pressure continued to build, and Mellencamp addressed the hecklers head on. Here's the thing, man. You don't know me. You don't effing know me.
Really? Well, we paid to see you sing.
Hey, Joe, find this guy and let me see him after the show. Oh, man, I would love to be that person.
Fight.
Yeah, picking a fight.
Yeah.
Someone from the crowd shouted out requesting the famous singer play Authority song.
Yeah.
And get back to the tunes.
Yeah.
The barrage of comments from the annoyed crowd set the singer off. Guys, I can stop this show right now and just go home. You listen to my lecture, damn it. I added that. Okay, I added that part of it. But that's who's communicating.
I can shut this thing down. Okay.
Tell you what I'm going to do. Since you've been so wonderful, I'm going to cut about 10 songs out of the show. Here we go. A brief moment into the first song, Mellencamp declared his show was over and abruptly walked off stage. He reportedly returned later and finished his set for the night. Mellencamp spoke about the matter during a recent interview with the Washington Post. I do expect etiquette inside the theater the same way you would at a Broadway show. My shows are not really concerts anymore. They're performances. There's a difference between a performance and a concert.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not for everyone anymore. I'm just not. And if you want to come and scream and yell and get drunk, don't come to my show. As he's cursing left and right at the audience.
Yeah.
That's why when I read that, I was thinking of Becker. It's like Mellencamp now is just angry all the time.
No, he's
just
constantly angry.
Yeah.
I saw an interview. I don't know how far back it goes. It's from recent years. I think it was Jane Pauley from the Sunday morning thing on CBS. Is that thing only shown in retirement homes, by the way? I'm just asking a question. Is it illegal to watch it under the age of 50? I'm just asking. But she goes there to, interview Mellencamp. And, of course, he's smoking a cigarette. Way to show respect for, I don't know. Jane Pauley might smoke 3 packs a day. I could be wrong. I don't think she does. But I might be wrong. But he's sitting there, because the cigarette makes you look cool. Right? Especially when you're old. And you're bitter about everything.
I'm sorry, but where I see the most cigarette commercials is the American Cancer Society from all these people who are quite disfigured who have died already.
Yeah, they show it, and they show this person passed away,
dead. And
it's brutal.
Yeah.
But it's the truth.
I mean, I see that all the time.
And he's sitting there and he's smoking away, and she's asking, and he's annoyed with every question. Let's talk about your new album. I don't know. Why is it always about music with you people in the media? It's just he's annoyed at everything.
He's Becker. Like I said, he's like Ted Danson on that. The character, which is a wonderful character that Danson plays.
Yeah.
It's just, but
she's like, you have a bunch of guitars in this room. Which one's your favorite? I don't have a favorite anything. Why are you here? It's like he was completely annoyed.
See, with
all of it.
I troll him from the beginning. Now that's an acoustic guitar. Can you put that up to 11?
Yeah,
just
exactly.
to tick him off. Just
right.
Stupid, dumb
questions. Yeah. Does your anger make it louder? Yeah.
Does your rage and your cursing make it so you write better songs since you haven't had a hit in a long time?
Your live shows seem to have the right balance of a long, extensive catalog of music and a ton of bitterness. What do you think had you achieving that balance? Where was that balancing point for you?
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So the question is here, so we just quickly got a couple seconds. Why are people like that on the left so angry? I mean, we get passionate about things specifically, and we hit them specifically. But Mellencamp is just becoming an angry old man.
Well, he's just bitter all the time. I couldn't quit watching that interview when I came across it. I didn't watch it when it aired, but it was on YouTube, and I came across it, and I couldn't quit watching it because that's the question that kept ringing through my mind. He was big when people were paying for music.
Yes.
He made a ton of money on a massive catalog of songs.
From his fans.
That his fans love.
Yep.
What are you so angry about?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.